Hey, Coach, just want to kind of get your assessment after having a chance to, watch the film of what you thought of Dexter and Brendan on Saturday in the game.
Yeah, I think two guys getting their first reps of real football versus a really good defense. I thought, Brennan went in, and I mean this in the most loving way possible. Played kind of like you would expect a freshman to play, in his, I think he had 12 or 15 reps. And then Dex went in and did some really good things, but there were also some really bad things. So plenty of things to learn from. Plenty of things to grow from. I'm about to have a big cough myself here in a second. But no, two guys getting their feet wet and excited to see them both moving forward. Both of them are going to be really good players for us at some point.
Zach and then Neeson.
I guess asking about Dexter in particular, because we did talk to you about him. You brought him up some in the preseason, kind of early in the season. I mean, is what we saw in terms of maybe the mobility, the arm strength, but obviously some of the raw, I guess, arm talent and just not fully refined because he hasn't played a lot of football at this level. Is that kind of what you've seen from him?
Yeah, absolutely. He's got all the natural physical skills, and he loves ball, and he's a studier, and he's a worker. And both of those young guys that got a chance to play, both, have a chance to be really good football players for IU. And so, but Dex, and again, so many times you hear people talk about physical tools, and then the natural assumption is, well, he must lack the mental tool, and that's not the case. Dex is he's unrefined right now. And we got to catch up some of the other tools with the really sharp ones, but he does have a lot of ability, and he's going to be a really good player for us moving forward.
Tyler.
Coach, kind of sticking on that theme with Dexter, Allen didn't necessarily shut down the idea of him possibly still getting some more snaps this year. Do you guys see a package or a situation where you guys would maybe go to a guy like Dexter versus Connor?
Yeah, I think that's, kind of how the game's going, and what opportunities present themselves, with what we're getting from the defense.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Hey, Coach. I hope you're doing well. Just continuing on Dexter, Tom Allen had just talked about how he's someone that's really liked throughout the team, and a high character guy. I guess what have you seen out of him in that regard? Would you agree with that assessment? How would you just kind of describe him intangibly?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, Coach Allen hit it right on the head. He's a guy that everybody loves because, number one, he's been here and he's been through difficult times while being here. He's had injuries, he's had setbacks, and I think anybody that has shared adversity with others, there's a natural level of trust that you build, and then just the type of kid he is. I mean, he's easy to be around. He's a joy to coach. I think the combination of having been through tough times with the guys and the fact of what type of human being he is, I think that leads to, a lot of people on the team having trust in him, and believing in him.
Jim.
Did you say me? Okay.
Let's go ahead,
Yeah. I'm wondering, I guess play calling wise, I know there's only so much you can say, but I guess did that aspect of things change, when Jack went out and Brendan and Dexter went in, and also with the score where it was?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you've got two young guys, and knowing that they, from a limited repetition standpoint and a limited amount of playing experience, yeah, that severely limits what you can do. But, as those guys continue to be in the mix, the more they get an opportunity, the more they'll practice, the more they'll play, and the better they'll be.
Jim, and then back to Zach.
Coach, with the running game not producing like you would have hoped, one thing I've asked before, and I'll ask again about Josh Henderson, his numbers show that he has been pretty productive when he gets the ball, but he's not getting the ball very often. He had only 7 carries in this last game, which he averaged 6 yards a carry, and that has been kind of how it's gone for him, but he is not getting the carries. And before we've been told that that's something that's going to be looked at. Why is he not getting the ball more?
Well, I'll say this. Do you know what we were on third down? We were 4 of 15. We had 7 3-and-outs. That's going to preclude a lot of touches, especially when you're doing everything you can to make sure that you're protecting those guys. That you're doing everything you can from a health standpoint, from a series standpoint, to make sure that those guys, they play the last unprotected position in college football. And those guys, I mean, they get hit, they get beat up. But when we're not able to stay on the field on third downs, that's going to limit a lot of the drives, And so from a touch standpoint, Coach Johnson has done a really nice job, and always does a good job. Obviously, he's done it at the highest level of football where you're kind of responsible for the exact same thing. And I've got to be better about making sure that if he does, lose a series because of whatever it may be, that we make sure that we're getting him the touches that he needs, because he has been incredibly productive. I think he's also our second or third leading receiver right now with Cam out, and it may be higher than that, but he has been very productive. I believe you're 100% correct on that. And we've got to continue to find ways to create touches for Josh, for Jalen, and for A.J. Barner as well.
Zach?
Walt, I was curious about Connor. I guess Tom, Coach Allen said he was in the booth on Saturday. Said that's something you guys have been doing with the QBs, but with him in particular, the guy that's gotten the bulk of the reps, he's as experienced as anybody you've had. I imagine up there in the booth with you in a game. Just what was different, I guess? What do you think he saw differently from up there, and what did he contribute?
I think the biggest thing is what you see is, especially as a quarterback, he's never had a chance to be up there. Connor's always been playing. He's never been a backup. He's never really had an opportunity to go to the press box, and while he was beat up pretty good and we were going to hold him to try to get him as healthy as we could. I think the first thing you realize when you go to the press box is just how much slower the game really is than it looks when you're playing it. And I think it's a great learning lesson for all those guys. And I think the other thing too is, especially, when we're on offense and we're calling plays and we're doing our deal, I think it's great repetition for those guys, driving around as they're supposed to go, reacting accordingly, making decisions in their own brain, also being responsible for, some really simple charting things. But I just think the overall experience of, even when our defense is on the field and he's hearing how our defense talks and he's hearing, you just start to learn another level of football, and you start to also understand, that there's levels to the mental game of football. I think he walked out of there being really impressed with, just recognition and how we, certain times in the game, what's coming based on situation and personnel groups, and our guys on defense are calling out what's coming before it ever happens. I think it's a great learning experience, because you learn that there's levels to the mental game of football, and you also understand that the game is much slower than sometimes you think it is. And I think being in the press box and far away and separated from it kind of helps you realize that.
Tyler Lessman for that.
Coach, I was just kind of curious, was that your idea to have Connor up in the press box, or was that something that he approached you about?
No, anytime we ever have a quarterback that, in certain situations, whether they're injured, whether it's a young guy, that's, he's not going to dress. You always try to get those guys out there, because, again, it's a really valuable lesson. It's a really valuable tool for their learning. There were some times early in the season, when Brennan Sorsby, he's not really on the depth chart, not going to dress that day, but, so you take him up in the press box just so he can watch, and be a part of that, and start to really see how football kind of works, and so anytime you get a chance, whether it be through an injury, whether it be through just from the developmental process, I think it's a really great learning lesson for those guys.